Okay, so hello everybody. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet this semester, my name is Alexis Baker, and this was my fourth cooperation with Marathon, and I just wanted to welcome you to my presentation. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about myself, some marathon experience that I've had, the major projects I worked on this semester, what I did outside of work, give some acknowledgments, and then leave any time for questions at the end. So I'm from Temperance, Michigan, which is about an hour south of the Detroit refinery, an hour north of Findlay, Ohio. I'm a senior at the University of Toledo studying chemical engineering, and I will graduate this December. This summer, I have a really cool opportunity to do my honors research thesis in catalyst deactivation, which is a brand new thing that we're doing at Toledo, so I'm really excited to get to take part in that. A couple of fun facts about me. I'm currently the president of the University of Toledo Engineering Council, and I also have 2 black belts in karate.
I didn't know you could have 2 black belts in karate.
Cool. American and Chinese.
Very cool.
Thank you. So, previous to this term, I was in Findlay in operations research. I worked on Galveston Bay's UPMs for LP2, LP3, UU3, and UU4. And then I also created a weekly mass balance spreadsheet that was sent out to each refinery every week telling them which mass balances they had were high in our system. Then I worked in Canton, Ohio in technical services. I was the unit engineer for the kerosene hydrotreater, our LPG splitters, and the caustic system. I worked with operations to optimize the kerosene hydrotreater's reactor bed temperature, and that saved on catalyst life and increased time between turnarounds, and ultimately saved about $100,000 per year. After Canton, I went to Cincinnati Renewable Fuels in Ohio. I was in tech services again. I worked on a heat exchanger following the spreadsheet. I worked on startup and shutdown procedures with operations, and then I developed our process safety information, such as our maximum attendant inventory and applicability spreadsheet, and then also our process chemistry documentation. Currently this semester, I was in Tech Services Process Optimization Group. My supervisor was Christy Johnson, and my mentor was Brad Lorette. This semester, I got a really cool opportunity to not only do process optimization group things, but also be the unit engineer on the ARU and UU3. I got this opportunity because Trent, the usual unit engineer, was actually working nights during the turnaround on NDU and AU2. So something I'm most proud of that I worked on was decreasing our pressure in our xylene tower in the aromatics recovery unit to decrease xylene going to huff, going to blending, because it's not worth as much as pure xylene is. So we sent more up the tower, as you can see in this diagram. This is about the time that I got to the refinery, and I worked with operations to lower it, and it stayed pretty low ever since. I'm also currently working on initiating an MOC to change the neutralizer in our UU3 stripper overhead from a water-based one to an oil-based one to reduce emulsion potential and plugging of our injection coils. Another opportunity that I got was to work on catalyst loading during the turnaround. I mostly focused on the West plant. I learned from Radhika and Mark loading the NDU and DDU 300, and then I worked more independently on UU3's 305D reactor. And then I also got to help out with our loading calculations for the ARU clay treater. Something that I was really proud of that I got to work on this semester was the UU3 training manual that I created. It's basically just kind of a troubleshooting guide for our reactor regeneration process. The book outlines 14 phases of the reactor regeneration and then lists all of the steps included in each phase. And then on the page next to the steps, you have a diagram of the process, and wherever the flow is, it's indicated in red, and then the valves are closed or open depending on what happened throughout the phase. So after I distributed this to the UU3 area team, UU4's team actually saw it, and they requested that I create them one. And so I was really happy that they saw the value in the product that I created. So this is just an example of one of the pages of the book. So you can see the phase is described on the top left, then all of the steps, and then on the right is our process diagram. So in the red, you can see where the flow is in the system, and then the valves are indicated closed to open, open to close, or if nothing happens to them in the phase, they just remain black.
Those correspond red, red, green, green on the left.
One of my favorite projects this semester was working on a 2011 PHA A level risk item. So this was concerned with possible air ingress into our slot tanks 135, 136, and 138. If air were to ingress into these tanks, we could potentially cause an explosion once the natural gas and air mix together. So I worked to either evaluate how to remove the oxygen once it entered the tank or eliminate our vacuum scenario altogether. So first I started with drawing the system. So here you can see the natural gas header regulator that I'll talk about right here. These are our 3 tanks with their regulators up above them. And then this is S28, which pulls the gas off of the top of the tanks. And then these 2 pumps are the storm tank to OMCC tanks, which pull off the water and oil from the bottoms of the tanks. So first, I started with calculating the total rate leaving the tanks, which ended up being about 3,200 scuffs per minute. And then I calculated the throughput of our natural gas header regulator, which ended up being about 1,800 scuffs per minute. So from that, you can conclude that we do not supply enough natural gas to these tanks to overcome what the pumps could possibly pump off. So therefore, we have a vacuum scenario that's possible. So I calculated the LEL and UEL flammability range of this natural gas system, and it came out to be about 5% and 23%. So then I calculated the natural gas percentage within the tanks once air was ingress, and the minimum that it can ever be is 56%. So on this chart, you can see that this is our flammability range. This is where we are, so there is no potential for an explosive atmosphere in the system. However, because the recommendation does ask that we eliminate the vacuum scenario altogether and that we don't just prove that it can't become an explosive atmosphere, I have recommended that we replace the natural gas regulator with one that can supply over 120% of what we require. I talked with Fisher, and they gave us a quote for a valve that was $6,800. It will make our natural gas percentage remain at 100%, so no air can ingress into the tanks. And it's easy to install online. It has a bypass around it, so all we have to do is close this valve, and then we can cut it out and replace it pretty easily. This process was reviewed with an MOC, documented with a memo that I wrote, and it will be implemented this May. Another really interesting project that I got to work on was scheduling a contractor to come out to do installation surveys on all of our equipment and lines in the refinery. So I had to schedule this contractor. It was kind of challenging at first. I didn't realize how much was involved with the tech service engineer and contractors. I got the opportunity to work with procurement to ensure that he was compliant with our PEC Premier, and then also make sure that he had a master service agreement. I got the opportunity to give him a refinery tour, which was pretty cool, and it kind of proved to me how much I really did know about the refinery out there, even though it's so big. And then I also got to answer any questions that he had through the process. So from the high-level summary that he supplied, we have determined that our total labor cost for all of the installation that we'd like to replace in the plant is about $2.7 million. The total environmental savings that we have is close to about 300 million pounds per year of carbon dioxide. And then our heat savings is about 1.8 trillion BTUs per year, which in terms of monetary value is about $7.5 million. So our IRR that we calculated for the system is about 229%, and I calculated that using the REM database. The top 3 units, which I thought was interesting, that we could replace things in to create higher energy savings for the refinery would be the RU, the Cat 3, and pipe stalls 3A and 3B.
Whenever you're talking about the numbers, so we can follow along with you, you might point with your laser
Okay.
pointer.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of helped because I was following you well. That's good.
Cool. So the last large project that I worked on this semester was the natural gas balance here at the plant. So Kinder Morgan supplies about 17 million scuffs per day of natural gas, and our MPC flow meters have a hard time balancing with this flow. So we don't necessarily think that we're not receiving 17 million scuffs per day from Kinder Morgan. We just think that our flow meters aren't necessarily holding all of these flows accountable. So what I did was I developed a new refinery pipe process book page for our natural gas system. It shows the flow to every single unit in the refinery that uses natural gas. And what I discovered was a large list of flow meters that read inaccurately or read 0. So I'm currently working with all of these units to get work orders put in for these flow meters. And once these flow meters are put in and they are working properly, the true value of my product process book page can be realized and can be used for troubleshooting purposes. Some of the additional projects that I got to support this semester was the focus on energy metrics. So these are about 250 metrics around the refinery that could save about $1.1 million in energy costs. So I reviewed about 80 of these metrics and put them into high, medium, low, and cancel categories. And the next step in this project will be to review these and then create metrics from them to be included in the KPIs that the unit engineers look at every morning. I also worked on a wastewater treatment plant temperature model. I looked for unidentified sources of wastewater flow. This was done by having the operators take 1 to 2 samples per week of our temperatures outside in the free wastewater flow, so our lift stations, things like that, and then putting this into our model and ensuring that the wastewater balance would close. I also worked on the heater tube seal surveys. So this was basically kind of like what the installation survey was. I was the point of contact for the contractor, and I took all of his analysis and put it together in a feasibility spreadsheet to be included in the 2017 maintenance budget. And then I also worked on a verification of accumulator RV protection in the plant to prove that our RVs on our accumulators were adequate protection for them in the case of an external fire. So besides working, I also went out in Houston and enjoyed the Texas weather here. I got a lot of opportunity to volunteer. I worked at the United Way Golf Tournament, the Together We Rise donations, Special Kids Day donations, and the Texas City ISD Duck Derby, where we actually won 3rd place for the duck that we created. We also got the opportunity to go to Topgolf, NASA Tour, the Houston Rodeo, the Tigers versus Astros game where the Tigers won, and also Six Flags. And then we also had the opportunity to go to one of the other co-op's marathons. She ran a half marathon, and we stayed there the whole time to support her. So I thought that was really cool, and it was a really good experience for co-op bonding. So I just wanted to take the time to thank you all for coming to my presentation today. Thank you for allowing me to serve my last co-op rotation here in Galveston Bay. I really enjoyed my time in Marathon. I couldn't have asked for a better company to do the last 4 co-ops with, and I really hope to be back one day. Does anybody have any questions?
So even though I interrupted you a bit, I think you're around 13 minutes, so you can probably watch it back